You're listening to 5 Before, a faith community podcast. Remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any new episodes. For more information, check us out at faithcommunitylc.com or look for our app on iTunes and the Google Play Store.
Hello, friends. All right, you guys. Today, I'm Kay Simpson, and this is my friend Michelle. And Michelle and I used to work together. We're nurses together at an orthopedic surgery center, and we both kind of retired around the same time. I think we're actually close to the same age.
You're older.
All right, well, good to know, now that we have that straight. But Michelle has a daughter and a son-in-law that attend Faith Community. It's Clay and Macy Turner, and Michelle has been here on and off, which I love having her here. And she just attended the Walk to Emmaus last weekend before last.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, last weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she was sharing some stuff with me, and I'm like, how do you feel about doing a podcast? So here we are. So I'm going to turn it over to her and let her just share some words with you guys. So hopefully it'll encourage us, and then at the end we'll say a little prayer.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Well, yeah, I heard about Walk to Emmaus, golly, about 20 years ago at least, when I was attending Lincoln Methodist Church. And it always seemed like something nice I'd like to do, but never really pursued it. We had a guy that had surgery done at the surgery center where Kay and I work, and of all things, she worked with the Walk to Emmaus.
Cheryl.
Yeah, Cheryl.
She shared that with me, yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just had a calling in my heart that this is something I needed to do. Mm-hmm. I had spent a lifetime attending church. I was a church musician for 17 years, playing the piano, singing the choir. So, Jesus was not a new concept for me. Mm-hmm. It's just I felt like I was at the part or the crossroads in my life where I needed to grow deeper in Him, because I knew the scriptures of the Bible. I could sing you every hymn out of the hymn book, but I just didn't feel it until I attended Walk to Emmaus. If you've never been, it is life-changing, or it was for me. Mm-hmm. So Kay asked me to do the podcast. Kay can be pushy, but
it's an invitation.
I also like a challenge. So I was like, yeah, I've got something to say. And when I knew right away what I wanted to talk about when she asked me. So what we're going to discuss today is Jesus walking on the water. As a child, I love that story in Sunday school. Just the thought of Jesus being able to walk on water intrigued me, but not until I dove into it as an adult did I see the meaning. And you could truly preach 100 sermons on this, on Jesus walking on water. So let me just I like to take things and put it in perspective to the world today, because sometimes we think the Bible is just a fairy tale, or we can't relate, or, it doesn't apply to us today, but it does. So I like to take things like that and put it into today's perspective. So I know from reading that when Jesus walked on the water, He had just finished feeding 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Mm-hmm. It was late in the evening when He did that. It wasn't early in the day. After He finished doing that is when He told His disciples to go get into a boat. It was approaching dark. So I think of that now, and I'm like, okay, well, what would we do when it's getting dark and we're told to go get into a boat while Jesus goes on the mountain to pray? And I'm sure they wondered what He was up to. And I know that a lot of these men were fishermen. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't the world we're in today. They didn't have flashlights. They didn't have lights on their boat. They didn't have, a cell phone to call anybody when they were in trouble. Mm-hmm. We know from Bible stories as a kid that a storm came up. So I wondered, did they know a storm was coming up? You know,
They didn't have the weather app.
they didn't have what's George saying it's going to do. You know,
Right.
Channel 6. Did they have life jackets? They didn't have a flare they could send up. The only light we think about, well, they had starlight or the moon, but if it's a storm coming, the stars aren't out. It's pitch black. So I'm imagining these 12 disciples in a boat in the middle of nowhere. They don't know where land is. Do they even know how to swim? You know, it's just what if, or thinking about what it was really like. I know it's an old saying, and it is, in fact, in the Bible. If you want to look it up, it's Matthew 16:2-3. But I've heard it, learned it from Fred, my husband. But it's an old saying. Red sky at night is a sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. So I wondered, was it a red sky and they knew they were going to be okay? Or did they know a storm was approaching? So nevertheless, they went out and the waves carried them farther and farther and farther out. I'm going to read this part of the Bible where it talks about this. It's Matthew 14:22-32. Immediately Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side while he dismissed the crowd. After he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they said, and cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid." "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid and beginning to sink, crying out, "Lord, save me." My favorite part. Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. "You of little faith," he said, "why did you doubt?" And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." I think Peter got a bad rap and all that. He's known as the one with little faith. But I think about the bravery of Peter. He stepped out. What did the 11 guys in the boat do? He was 12. There was 12 in there. He stepped out.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
What were the 11 people in the boat doing? Okay? He took a risk. He looked around him, though, when he was afraid and saw the storm. He took his eyes off Christ. Again, my favorite part is Jesus reached out and caught him when he was sinking. We raise ducks at our house. If you've ever been there, you know that. I'm going to tell you a little story about ducks. They don't know how to swim when they're born. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
They do not know how to swim when they're born. They are born, though, with an oil gland above their tail feathers. And as they mature, that oil increases, and they take their beaks and they smear that oil all over them so that when they get in the water, they won't sink.
Oh, wow.
And their mother will actually take her oil and smear it on her babies so they won't sink. Mama duck knows when her babies can swim. She takes them to the water. She goes out in the water first to show them the way. And they sit there on the side watching her. They take a step of faith. They've never swam before. But because of their protective oils, they will float. If they're not taken out, if they're taken out too early, they will die because their feathers will become waterlogged and they will sink. Wow. They also have air pockets in their feathers that keep them afloat. All that being said, their mother leads them, and she knows the perfect time to take them in the water. She goes out there and teaches them how to swim. I've watched a mama duck start bathing herself, and those little ducklings will mimic her exactly. It's so pretty. It is so pretty. She'll duck her head under the water, and they duck their head. They do. So they mimic her, and they hang close to their mama until they learn how to be good swimmers. Something I've heard in life, and I've told my children many times, and it's so true. So just think about this. If you always do what you've always done, you're going to always be right where you've always been.
Amen.
So my point today is trust. Trust in the Lord. Step into the water. Keep your eyes on Him. Don't look at the storms around you. Focus on Him, because He will lead you the way.
Amen. Okay.
And I will close with Proverbs 3:19. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight.
Amen. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Although I do get the visual of the mom anointing her babies with that oil. That's so cool. All right, guys. So she knows what she's talking about. Listen up and take on your day. Take care.
Thank you for listening to 5 Before, a Faith Community podcast. For more information, check us out at faithcommunitylc.com or look for our app on iTunes and in the Google Play Store.